I'm Eva Suarez in London, and just ahead right here on CNN Newsroom.
This administration has failed to ensure that the Americans have the tests they need.
This is a pandemic that we've been dealing with for 2 years. Everyone needs to step up and do their part.
We have a pandemic that everyone knows right now is like a tsunami on us.
COVID frustrations and
Listen to some news and jam.
questioned again. NATO and Russia hold face-to-face talks this hour in a bid to diffuse tensions over Ukraine. Realize the EU in Brussels and in Kiev. And is the party over for Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, expected to face his grilling if Boris for him to resign?
Live from London, this is CNN Newsroom with Eva Suarez.
Welcome to the show, everyone. It is Wednesday, January the 12th, and we begin with some startling admissions from two top U.S. medical experts about COVID-19
Top US health
and the
experts say most people will get COVID.
They say most people will be
problem.
exposed to the virus eventually, and many will get it. Have a listen.
I think it's hard to process what's actually happening right now, which is most people are going to get COVID. All right, and what we need to do is make sure that our hospitals can still function, transportation, other essential services are not disrupted while this happens.
I think in many respects, Omicron, with its extraordinary, unprecedented degree of efficiency and transmissibility, will ultimately find just about everybody. Unfortunately, those who are still unvaccinated are going to get the brunt of the severe aspect of this.
Well, these same experts are emphasizing once again that the best way to protect yourself is to get vaccinated. This is a new statement from CDC that shows that at least 1 in 5 Americans, 65 million Americans, are still unvaccinated. Meanwhile, the U.S. has broken its record
Loud and proud.
hospitalized for COVID. Nearly 150,000. You can see that on the screen. That tops the previous mark from January
Why
of last
that
year.
information is anybody's business is beyond me,
The
though.
country are feeling the strain. Washington, D.C. and New Jersey have been forced to declare public health emergencies.
I don't want to
And
know
mask
anybody's
mandates
private
and
personal health
vaccine
information, like their vaccination status.
Wearing
Give me
any
a break.
mask is better than no mask at all, but there is a gradation of capability of preventing you from getting infected and from you transmitting it to someone else. So we should be wearing the best possible mask that we can get.
Well, Omicron's impact on everyday life is clear with one look really at empty shelves in U.S. grocery stores. Workers get sick, stores have staffing shortages which affect the
Don't forget, this is all because of the COVID-19 response. This isn't because of COVID-19. This is all because of the COVID-19 response.
All this week has also bogged down delivery. Meanwhile, a group of teachers in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, is planning a stick-out in a few hours, really to protest COVID-19 protocols. The teachers are calling for virtual learning and to
They're protesting all over the world
They also
so
want
frequently
10-day isolation
and in
periods
such
with
big numbers.
25 students and staff forced to
It's
test.
shocking that they haven't been talking about it. They're really trying to control people.
Inflation in the U.S. is compounding all of this, all the problems
In the United
for
States,
Americans,
you know,
which
by
is
not
trying to really
talking
make
about
ends
what's
meet.
going on.
The Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell pledging
And by
action
reporting
to
it in a
try
certain
to
way.
bring this prices down.
In a way, high inflation
Funny.
is a severe threat to achieving a maximum employment and to achieving a long expansion that could give us
some
that. If
ideas
we have to
on
raise
why they
interest
wanna
rates more over
manipulate
time, we will.
Of course, higher interest rates bring risks and problems of their own. Some economists say they expect 4 rate hikes this year. Meanwhile, a 2-month high for oil prices causing pain at the pump right across the United States. Oil rose nearly 4% to $81 a barrel on Tuesday. You can see that. Experts predict an average of $3.06 a gallon for gasoline this year. Right now, the national average is $3.30 a gallon. Now, Dr. Anthony Fauci
Well, I don't care how much
isn't
gas
holding
is
back
or
the
oil.
frustrations of Republican
Stuff's
lawmakers.
disgusting.
He
Nobody
says
should care how much that shit
spreading
costs.
misinformation
Should leave it in the
about
ground
him
and shut up
and the
about it.
pandemic. Listen to this exchange with Kentucky's Rand Paul.
It should be banned everywhere. People should stop burning it. It should be
Personal
illegal to
attacks
burn.
on me
that have absolutely no relevance to reality.
You think anybody's had to worry about
Let me finish.
and you have? You had a great success. You think it's a great success what's happened so far?
What happens when he gets out and accuses me of things that are completely untrue is that all of a sudden that kindles the crazies out there, and I have life.
So what? That's not his fault at all. Take that up with the crazies.
Harassment of my family and my children.
You can't blame
who
that
have seen
on
phone
somebody.
calls because people are lying
That's
about
such
it.
baloney.
So I ask myself,
So he has to censor himself, or he has to not tell them what he thinks is the truth, because somebody else might take that information
fire Dr. Fauci with a
and
little
want to hurt
box that
Fauci.
says, contribute here.
Yeah, right.
You can do $5, $10,
It's just a
$20,
liberal, emotional thing.
$100. So you are making a catastrophic epidemic for your political
It's
gain.
not his fault. People give him
Well,
threats.
at that same hearing, Kansas Senator Roy Marshall asked Dr. Fauci to release his financial records, which are already available to the public.
As the highest paid employee in the entire federal government, yes or no, would you be willing to submit to Congress and the public a financial disclosure that includes your past and current investments?
I don't understand why you're asking me that question. My financial disclosure is public knowledge and has been so for the last 37 years or so, 35 years.
Why does CNN think that we want to hear from an 80-year-old immunologist?
You're so misinformed. It's extraordinary.
Vicar. I mean, there's like 1,000 things that they could talk about.
Public information and impacted.
And this is the number one story.
Senator Moran.
This old government employee bickering with the Senate.
Well, Senator Fauci not holding back there with those last words.
Really just
Well, the House
a
Intelligence
tribal
Services
time right now.
Department issued a statement
I heard that
saying,
CNN
"At
lost a ton
time
of
when
viewers
America seems
since
rising
last year.
service cases, it is
So they'll
disappointing and
probably
frankly
just chase after any shiny
unacceptable.
object
The
and
Republican
stay
senators
partisan
chose to
as they
spend a
can.
hearing with the country's leading public health experts spreading conspiracy theories and lying about Dr. Fauci rather than how we protect people from COVID-19 from the state across the board. Now, an American Airlines flight out of Honduras got on a welcome surprise on Tuesday while passengers were boarding. The airline said while the Miami-bound plane was on the ground, a man entered the open flight deck, invaded the cockpit, and damaged the plane. But he didn't stop there, going on to try and jump out.
I don't know why they tell us
out of the
these
plane
stories.
window. Eventually, crew members
I think they actually,
have been
this is like a
arrested,
low-key
and the flight
advertisement for
resumed
these
in the
airlines.
plane.
I think this actually does not deter people at all from taking flights.
On New Day right here on CNN. Now, top brand
And they repeatedly advertise for these
now
companies.
admitting a mistake was made on the travel form. Excuse me. He submitted to enter Australia a declaration that's now at the Central Court.
That'd be a poll I'd be interested in hearing is that has anybody said I'm not flying because people have gotten into arguments on planes.
Also saying he wants to
It
address
hasn't stopped
and
me.
clarify what he called misinformation about his activities last month ahead of a positive COVID-19 test result. Among them,
And I don't think they've been real forthright about some of these people being laid off or leaving work. I think they know why sometimes different or flights are canceled too. And I think there's another story behind it. If they don't want to admit it.
We've now learned two journalists working for the French
Because they want people to get vaccinated and fall in line and see things a certain way.
during or in fact after the 33-minute interview. Let's get more on this. Joining me now from Atlantic CNN World Sports, Patrick Snell and Melvin Ben Rothenberg, senior editor for Raquette magazine and the host of the No Challenges Remaining podcast. Patrick, good morning. Let me start with you. So now we're hearing from Djokovic admitting, frankly, to breaking isolation rules and admitting to an administrative mistake on his form, blaming his agent there. Does his statement, Patrick, answer the questions and uncertainties that you and I have been asking for?
Lisa, hi there. Yes, we learned a lot, that's for sure, this Wednesday. But you're quite right, there is so much more we need answers to. And what we just love a few minutes one-on-one with Djokovic to try and get to those answers. Let's look at the travel issue first.
These are probably advertisements for the Australian Open too.
He has not travelled in the 14 days prior to his arrival in Australia. This is really
Well, It's pretty clever because it kind of turned out to be advertisements.
In fact, was shown in both Spain and
I
in
bet they'll get
homeland
record,
Serbia.
probably get record numbers of people watching, as long as they don't give this guy a real raw deal. And then they'll get the opposite, people probably not watch.
This was submitted by my support team on my behalf, by some immigration officials on my arrival, and my agent.
He's from Serbia, so I don't think they feel much of a connection to him and don't really care that much in Australia. Whether he plays or doesn't play is the bottom line.
This was a human error, and certainly not deliberate. We are living in challenging times.
It's not like an Australian champion or something playing for Australia.
Can occur. So let's get to this COVID-19 positive test in December just gone, because it has proved so controversial in recent days. And Djokovic admitting in that same statement he did immediately isolate after testing positive for COVID-19 last month, but denied knowing he had the virus when attending public events, saying he attended that basketball game he just referenced in Belgrade. That was on December the 14th, where many people tested positive afterwards.
More international people watch right now, and more international people care about tennis, I think.
On the 16th.
Tennis is a very small following in the US.
Before he received the official
So
results
you get
of the
less
test, he
coverage
did
there.
take a rapid test that came out negative, attended a youth tennis awards ceremony, and it was only after that.
I think sometimes too they want to take the temperature of the country and the world and see how many people actually give a crap about this stuff. How many people will watch it, get involved, tweet about it.
That's when he said at his tennis center in Belgrade, he conducted that interview and a photo shoot as well with France's league chief, saying he cancelled all other events except for that one. Why? Because he said he did not want to let the journalists in question down. Well, Djokovic saying he was socially distant. He did wear a mask except for when his photo was being taken. In his statement, this is what leapt out to me as part from the statement. While I went home after the interview to isolate for the required period, on reflection, this was an error of judgment, and accept that they should have rescheduled this commitment to Novak Djokovic there. Speaking out and very revealing, he said, as I say, we've learned a lot, but we are still left with many, many more questions.
Yeah, and stay with us, Pat. Let me go to Ben. Ben, given what we just heard, the package of that line from Djokovic, do we know how this information may play in the Australian government's decision here? Any guidance as to when a decision will be made?
See, I don't see why they're wasting so much time on this because it all falls under the same thing that they're never going to see or admit. And that's the same thing that happened with Aaron Rodgers, is that they have a terrible, terrible employer that they have to do something terrible that they don't want to do. So therefore, they act how they damn well please because they're afraid to confront their employer. Happened with Aaron Rodgers in the NFL, happened with Djokovic, and this tennis stuff. In my opinion, his employer and the Australian government and whatever else, whichever other governments that want to act this way have problems. No one's making life hard on people.
We shall wait
That are acting
for the decision. Ben
inappropriately.
Rothenberg, Patrick Roth in Atlanta. Thank you,
He's
Jen.
a victim.
Thank you very much. Now, in the coming days, the U.S. Senate could take up voting rights legislation, even though Democrats
But
don't
he's
have enough
got to play
votes
the
to
game
pass
because he wants
protections or
the
even
money.
to change the rules.
Sure,
This
if he
could
doesn't play,
ride
he
on the
doesn't do
heels
it.
of the U.S. President's visit to Georgia to push for election reform.
Same thing with Aaron
Georgia,
Rodgers.
a long-time red state that
Kinda
went
think they got him
through
by
for
the
Joe
balls.
Biden in 2020, is front and center in the country's voting
Like
rights
Kyrie
battle.
Irving, he didn't want to get vaccinated, and so they don't even let him play in home games because New York has the ordinance, and that's where he plays.
President Biden making a new push for voting rights.
If New York has this ordinance next year, I bet he'll go to another club because he could play every day on another club if they don't have the mandate
In
like New York
Georgia,
does.
a state that's become ground zero in the fight over election integrity,
Or
Biden
for like
framed
Orlando
it as
Magic
a
or something, I bet
defining
it's a real loose,
Not just here in
it's looser
Georgia.
down in Florida.
Last year alone, 19 states not proposed, but enacted 34 laws attacking voting rights.
This guy's a bozo. I'm so
updated
tired of hearing this
pressure
guy.
on Congress to pass voting rights legislation by making an exception to
I
the
can't believe they keep
filibuster,
playing him.
which has allowed Republicans
I
to
can't
block
believe
the
he keeps
bills
talking.
so far.
Not a single Republican has displayed the courage to stand up
He won't shut up on Twitter. They keep playing him on these channels.
I support changing the Senate rule.
Fox makes him look like the devil. These guys make him look like the Messiah. He's just an old man that reads stuff in his political
Biden was
party.
flanked by Vice President Harris, Democrats, and a slew of civil rights leaders. But one of the most prominent voices for voting rights, Stacey Abrams, was missing.
I spoke to Stacey this morning. There was a great relationship. We got our scheduling mixed up.
Abrams' office cited a scheduling conflict, but her absence raised eyebrows as other Georgia voting rights groups boycotted Biden's visit, calling for action, not a photo op.
Rivera passed the speech back in Philadelphia back in July. But then literally for 7 months we heard nothing else about voting rights.
The president is taking a gamble he may not be able to deliver on.
I've been having these quiet conversations with members of Congress for the last 2 months. I'm tired of being quiet.
Changing the filibuster requires the support of all 50 Democrats, which right now he doesn't have.
If you change the rule, 2/3 of the president, so the Democrats are changing the rule.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is pledging to push for a rules change if Republicans don't get behind voting rights legislation by Martin Luther King Jr.
If they continue paralyzing to the point where we're helpless to fight back against the big lie, we must consider the necessary steps we can take so the Senate can adapt and act.
But Senate Minority Leader
I'm
Mitch
so tired of hearing them
McConnell
talking about voting rights.
response if Democrats
I had no
follow
trouble
through.
casting my vote, so why should I care about whatever the federal government is trying to do
I
with
assure you, it would not be more
the way
efficient
that I vote in my state?
or more productive.
Did he pass it or don't pass it? I don't care. Why should I care at all?
So President Biden making
I
his
successfully
most
voted
extensive
last
remarks
time.
yet on changing the
No
rules
problem
of the
whatsoever.
filibuster when it comes to voting
So
rights. But
whatever,
clearly the
do what you
president
want.
of the Antilles
I don't know.
may
Make it
hold
better
on
or
hand
don't
the
change it.
president's visit to
Why should I
Atlanta,
care?
says he wants to see more than just words. He said
As long
in
as
a
you don't
statement, while
screw it
President
up.
Biden delivered a stern speech today, it's time for this administration to match their words with actions and for Congress to do its job. Of course, we know that job is going to be an uphill battle given the holdouts that remain.
I think most Americans probably feel that way, you know?
Caitlin Collins,
You look at all the people that cast votes and stuff in the last election, and
Thank you,
I think they're all
Caitlin.
going,
Meanwhile,
well,
Georgia's
it
Republican
worked for
governor
us.
toying
What's the
state
big deal?
ground zero for the Biden-Harris assault on election integrity. Ryan Kemp, who's fighting off a primary challenge from Trump-backed rivals,
Every state does it a
accused
little
the White
differently.
House of lying about Georgia's new voting bill,
And the
which
states
has
take care of it
rules.
and do things the way they
Kemp
want to
says
do it.
the bill makes
The
it
federal
easy
government
to
is
vote and
talking about
hard to
making them
cheat.
do it the way that they want them
South
to do it.
Dakota's Republican governor, Kristi Noem, says she
And that's
intends to
Pentecostal
push
Baptist.
for legislation to ban all abortions
Some states
at
aren't
6
going to do
weeks
it.
or once the heartbeat can be detected.
And so
A pledge
it's
for the
actually,
so-called heartbeat ban came
Look, some
during
states
the
might do
state
some of
of the
it,
state
but
address
some
on
of the stuff in
Tuesday.
the bill,
Abortion rights advocates have
might
still
defy
lawsuits
the
for the
government
similar
in
laws
some
already in
ways.
place in other states. Now, NATO diplomats are coming together in Belgium, hoping to avert
doesn't matter because it looks like it's not going to pass
Russia
anyway.
and Ukraine. Coming up, live reports
Thinking
from
it's 60
Kiev
votes and not
and
50.
Brussels as critical talks with Russian diplomats get underway. Then North Korea is counting its latest missile test, which the United States said did not pose an immediate threat, and yet the launch prompted a strong response in part of the United States. We have that story next.
It's you nerd copy. You're
Both the live news stations have commercials. That's what borrowing a note from another key. Because all those notes are not in any single key. But it sounds okay, just sonically. No 3 notes in a row are in one key on a guitar.
Welcome back. Today, Chicago students will finally return to the classroom. A teachers' union strike canceled class for 4 school days. The teachers' union was in negotiation with the city over COVID safety protocols. Agreed terms to end the strike include returning to remote learning on a school-by-school basis, depending on attendance and COVID cases within each community. The measure is expected to be voted on this week by all union members.
And Carly, school choice for parents in New York State may be taking a major hit as a proposed law blocked the opening of many new elementary and secondary charter schools. And joining me now, Karina Rausch, President and CEO of the National Association of Charter School Authorizers. Karina, thanks for being here. Why would this state lawmaker named John Liu go out of his way?
Other than just in New York, everything. These people think that the whole world revolves around New York. Well, it does not.
Now, we are keeping a close eye on Brussels this hour, where critical talks between NATO and Russia are getting underway. It is the second of 3 meetings this week, which we've been showing you all week, aimed really at preventing a Kremlin invasion of Ukraine. And Monday's talks with the US and Russia ended in really a stalemate in Geneva. Since then, Russia has announced new military drills and still demanding Ukraine never join NATO. But the US refuses to rule out place for Kiev in the alliance. Here's what America's ambassador to NATO told CNN Hamilton.
No one is suggesting that we alter NATO policy on enlargement. The door remains open. No one has the right to keep the door shut. And any decision about enlargement will continue to rest between the NATO alliance and the country in question.
Finland's international diplomatic editor Nick Robertson is live from Brussels, and senior international correspondent Kylie is in Kiev, in Ukraine. Nick, let me start with you. As we just heard there from your employee, I mean, NATO has been pretty unified in its position on Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russia sees Ukraine still joining NATO with red lights. Given this, Nick, is there any ground for optimism here?
Well, the Russians said after their talks in Geneva that there was the potential for optimism, that they would remain optimistic. Even the Kremlin spokesman said in the past couple of days that there was reason to keep going.
Russia didn't break any laws.
Seems to be, and it's a different deputy foreign minister here, than the one who was sent to Geneva for the talks with the US there, Alexander Grushko is the former Russian ambassador to NATO, and he's heading up the delegation here. They formed with Deputy Defense Minister
creating a problem that doesn't exist to
is also part of the
get money
Russian
to pay for
delegation, but
your
it's
job
hard
and
to see
your
that the
chores.
outcome's going to be different. NATO has been very joined up indeed, in telegraphing and telling the Russians at multiple times, multiple levels, that they need to de-escalate tensions, that NATO will not concede to their demands.
None of it's probably real.
Indeed, it's a complete anathema to NATO that Russia could be demanding that NATO sort of roll back its deployments to pre-1997 levels. So the perception here is that the Russians will walk away with the same message that they got in Geneva. How they react and respond isn't clear. Perhaps a lot of things has changed. This is a micro change, I think you might say, since the meeting in Geneva. One of the criticisms that Wendy Sherman, who led the U.S. delegation in Geneva and leads the U.S. delegation here at the NATO talks as well, was that if the Russian side is serious about
big mean country out there that does scary stuff to some other nation that is supposed to be standing next to or whatever.
And another question the U.S. side raised was, if Russia really is there in a training exercise, why haven't they told us about that as they have done in the past? So late yesterday, the Russians announced that 3,000 of those troops would be doing a live fire exercise. So, you know, is that a slight modification of the Russian position? Is it a positive, or is it up in the ante? Really not clear.
Yeah, and Sam, if the outcome is the same from what we saw in Geneva, what is Ukraine's position here? What's the biggest fears?
Well, the biggest fear is a continued expansion of
rebel
territory into Ukrainian
until they fire a shot.
They've already large chunk of the east of the country known as the Donbass already under
They could do this for
Russian tutelage.
hours
The
and
Russians
hours and
have
hours.
illegally annexed the Crimea.
Talk about wars that might
From
happen.
the Ukrainian perspective, these maneuvers, these live firing maneuvers involving 3,000 troops right on their border,
But they're a bunch of children. You should treat them like children.
clearly
Not give them
saber-rattling
the
or
negative
gunfire
attention they're
over
trying
their
to get.
heads. I mean, this is a direct threat as far as the Ukrainians are concerned. And yesterday, just as the Russians were announcing this live fire exercise, the Ukrainians said that they had intelligence that inside the Donbass region, two significant military units there were also conducting maneuvers. That was being seen as a signal that the Russian-backed rebels in the east of the country might also be preparing for some kind of military action. Of course, this is all part of the theatre behind these talks going on between Russia and NATO at the moment. And much more widely, the Ukrainians are also aware that since they drove from power the Kremlin-backed president here during the Maidan rebellions a few years ago, Putin has been extremely anxious about his own long-term survival, his existence. They're aware that democracy in countries like Ukraine, attempts at democracies in nearby Belarus, again, another authoritarian leader on the border with Russia, and of course events we've seen over in Kazakhstan, another pro-Kremlin authoritarian leader. All of these signals of Vladimir Putin that he may be personally vulnerable to the spread of democracy as much as NATO.
Very important
Doesn't matter
context.
to
The
me
meeting
at all.
has
It's nothing
started
with my life.
from 30
Not
minutes ago.
interesting.
Nick Robertson,
Not pertinent,
former
not
Russian
relevant.
Sun Kylie here. Thank you to you both.
Totally useless information.
Life's about to get more expensive for certain Canadians who refuse the COVID vaccine. Whereas Quebec puts it, the unvaccinated now have a way to financially contribute to overwhelmed hospitals, we'll explain. Plus, a new poll has Boris Johnson going from bad to worse. The latest fallout from the Partygate scandal. Just ahead.
I don't just play someone brainy on TV.
Partygate? A lot of times, man, it's brutal watching these stations. It's the only thing with live TV, and it happens with live news. But it's hardly news, it's propaganda. Everything from the selection of the stories to whatever, and their advertisements as well.
Welcome back. 90 people charged with murder are now free to walk the streets of Chicago thanks to progressive bail reform. This is murder, folks. The Cook County Sheriff revealing the city's electronic monitoring system has 90 murder suspects and 40 attempted murder suspects under tracking, not behind bars. Police and Mayor Lori Lightfoot have pleaded to end the program for violent offenders, but a judge has denied their request, saying all are innocent until proven guilty.
Well, from the Windy City to the West Coast, violent crime is plaguing America's streets. 5 people have been detained for shooting and killing off-duty LAPD officer Fernando Arroyo in an attempted armed robbery. And look at this video. Surveillance video shows thieves armed with sledgehammers swiping $100,000 worth of jewelry from a San Jose mall. Joining me now, the owner of Heart of Gold, Corbin
aid to
Those people need to get out of the house more.
all of our employees. They weren't sure if they were going to die. They weren't sure how escalated those moments would be. It was just some of the worst moments of some of their lives.
Wow. And I understand that a couple of weeks before this robbery that we're seeing unfold on our screen right now, you started noticing a group of people check in out your jewelry store. And because there have been other smash and grab robberies in your area, you thought to yourself, this could happen to me. So you talked to police and said, I'm a little worried that I'm being targeted. What did police tell you in response?
The police, they let us know that there's nothing that they can do at that moment, that they need time to let the critics do more crime and more things happen in order to put these guys away for a long time. They let us know that if they didn't do enough of these crimes and they were caught, they would be put away for a short amount of time. So,
Eric, how did that make you feel? You basically said, I know that I'm going to get robbed. You told police, and they looked at you and said, our hands are tied.
that's right. That's what happened. So my store actually, we closed for a week, trying to avoid any robbery.
Imagine this is insured, and he's got insurance on his
That's the
business,
day
and
that we
they
reopened after trying to prevent the
probably pay
robbery for
for
1 week.
some of
After
the damage
closing
and
for a whole
theft.
week. We opened
You
that
said
day.
it better.
Eric, it just feels so lawless and so unfair. And your district attorney, his name is Jeff Rosen, and the first line of his bio on his website says he's a nationally recognized leader in criminal justice reform, including reducing jail populations. How is that working for you? What's your message to him and other elected leaders in your area?
Well, I feel for the topic of trying to reduce the jail population, but these are not guys that care about people's lives. They don't care about our livelihoods. They're not worried, about the decent men and women that are going to work, and they're coming and threatening us with violence and threatening to take away the things that we've been earning for years. And they take it within a matter of seconds. So, it feels like they really need to figure out how to improve the laws in order to prevent this from happening. My dad was injured, and that really broke my heart to see. It had the pressure been a little bit harder on his head, he could have died. So these guys came in threatening lives.
Eric, we are so sorry this happened to you, but thank you so much for speaking out on this important issue, and hopefully because of your story, maybe things will change and it won't happen to somebody else. Eric, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, you bet. Todd, over to you.
It just doesn't make sense. It's sticking with the theme. Time now, 34 minutes after the hour. Angry business owners in the Big Apple will meet with the new Manhattan DA and potentially begin a recall effort over his soft on crime agenda. But first, some of them will tell us what they want to hear from the Woburn prosecutor.
Jesus.
The true number of infections here could be as much as 500,000 a day. At that rate, of course, when you look what
More than half
they
of
know,
it could get COVID soon.
it doesn't take too long, it doesn't take too many days before you reach a point where half the population
forecast to
of
spread
most of
in
Europe
6 to 8
is
weeks, and they
infected
just
with
show
COVID.
somebody getting
So,
vaccinated.
yes, I think
Which is pretty stupid because the vaccines are not helping for this Omicron variant.
Trying to figure out how to keep
And it's pretty silly they were really trying to push them too.
According to the parents, they've changed these protocols 3 times.
But a bunch of people are still getting sick from Omicron and taking time off work. And most of them are saying they would not have been so well off or whatever if they didn't get the shots. But they don't know that.
Jim Whitton for us in Paris and South. Thanks very much, Jim. Good to see you. Now, Boris Johnson is sure to face some pointed questions in Parliament
I
today
imagine
after
over the
new
course of a
revelations
year or two
in the
getting
Partygate
a vaccination
scandal. The latest allegation stems from a
many
leaked
months
email
ago
from a
is
top
probably not all
Downing
that
Street official
helpful
inviting staff
in
to
itself.
a garden party in May of
I think
2020,
it also
and that
probably
is when the country
matters how many
was
times
under
you come in
strict
contact with
COVID lockdown. Now,
the coronavirus.
opposition Labour Party leaders say it's
Because your
time
body has
for
either
Mr.
been
Johnson to stop
caused or
lying to the public Meanwhile, Newport,
You're gonna hide now, or you're
British
then
adults think
exposing yourself to
he
viruses
should
and
resign as
building
the
your immune
in
system.
Salman Beladis here in London. And Salma, we have been here
People
before,
have-
perhaps many times before.
Yeah, they've been lying to people about the vaccines.
Really means for the Prime Minister, because looking at the Times newspaper, what people want to hear, just bring it up, you probably won't be
They've
able
been
to
lying by
say it,
omission.
is say sorry, really say sorry or do it all, Minister. Could this, you think, if he doesn't apologise, be the undoing of Boris Johnson?
He said to say sorry, you have to start by admitting that you did something wrong. And the Prime Minister has absolutely refused to do that so far. Look, for weeks now, we've been mired in this scandal, headline after headline. First it was Christmas parties, then there were garden parties, now there's a bring your own food party. The questions you're asking are going to be the questions asked of the Prime Minister in Parliament today. He's going to be in Parliament facing Prime Minister's questions, the regular weekly scheduled event. But this one is going to be tense. Because, again, this growing scandal, this spiraling case, this dizzying array of allegations now that appear to show over and over again the Prime Minister and his administration are accused of violating COVID rules, the rules that they put into place themselves. What's the latest one? The latest one is a subpoena, just as you mentioned, sent in May of 2020 that appeared to cite up to 100 Downing Street staff members to socially distance drinks in the Downing Street garden. Bring your own food, exclamation point. You can only imagine that tone, how it begins to hurt and affect people, particularly those who are separated from their loved ones, particularly those who are bereaved family members. The very idea that the Prime Minister or his staff would be partying or having drinks or socially engaging in activities that were banned for everyone while a virus was spreading through the population like wildfire. And then there's the larger question that it's not just about what happened, it's now about how the Prime Minister handled it. We're going to see him back in Parliament today. You can expect that he's going to
Two-thirds say
point
Boris
that
Johnson
investigation
should be
and say, I
boss.
can't comment
Johnson
any
would say
further.
if he
That's what the
attended
Prime Minister has
2020
done so far.
It's so petty.
I don't think that's flying.
Like these people complaining about
Yeah. I think it's going to be very
AOC going to Florida
and I
and to a
expect
restaurant,
really late
sitting
today.
outside
I
without a
know we shall
mask.
be watching Salman Beladis as well. Thanks so much, Salma.
Why would people complain about that? She obeyed the rules there.
I've got some breaking news coming
cares?
into
She didn't do
CNN.
anything wrong.
Source says the
Just like this
Australian
president,
Border
people
Force
are so
is
picky.
now expanding its investigation.
But they bring it on
into
themselves
Lieutenant
because
Djokovic.
sometimes they
We have been
condemn
told
people for
officials
their
are looking
mask
into
wearing
possible
behaviors,
inconsistencies
then
in
they get
documents
caught.
related to his
Then
December
people start
PCR
watching
test
them
results, as well
to
as
see if they can point out their hypocrisy, and sure enough, eventually they find something they can use.
in Serbia. Now, the source says it's not been determined if these issues could impact the validity of his view. But the breaking news, Australian Border
Well,
Force
what was she supposed to do? Wear a mask
expanding
or
their
just for the heck of it?
investigation
She's a
into
healthy young adult.
Djokovic. Of course, we
Doesn't
shall
all make
stay
sense.
on top of the story as more developments. We will, of course,
In Florida with her boyfriend
now,
at a restaurant.
U.S.
outside.
lawmakers have issued 3 more subpoenas,
It's not for
and they
law,
are
but
closing in on
so
people
why
inside
people
Donald
make a
Trump's
big
inner
deal about
circle. Details on exactly
They're
who.
probably doing the same thing about this president. It's kind of strange for one that the people feel so compelled to do what the government says, or it's just a suggestion, just guidance or whatever. It might be a little different in the UK, but there are a bunch of rules too that businesses make, and then people have to follow. So that's kind of how they've been covering their ass. The government has been hiding behind businesses and getting them to change their rules, strong-arming them into making people get vaccinated. It's a shit show.
Among a ton of other things. So if those 2 bills pass, and that's a big if, what happens to the country and our elections?
You will never have another fair election. They want to, their goal is to federalize all national elections. The states will have no say in their voter rights. And Americans, why would they even go to the poll if they know that we'll never get another Republican elected? It's, you know, they're not trying to disguise their plan. It's out in the open. There's 3 voter bills being floated on the Senate side. And, you know, Chuck Schumer's right in the middle of all that, trying to discard the filibuster. You have Joe Manchin with a plan. You know, they went from H.R. 1 to H.R. 4. I don't even know which one they're going to portray to us, so we can say no. But
win, and nobody seems to vote against it. I want to switch gears to this. Another big talker from yesterday, Dr. Fauci and Senator Paul clashing over accusations of cheap politics regarding the alleged takedown of other scientists. Here's the exchange. The idea that a government official like yourself would claim unilaterally to represent science, that any criticism of you would be considered a criticism of science itself, is quite dangerous. You are distorting everything about me. You keep coming back to personal attacks on me that have absolutely no relevance to reality. More people have died now under President Biden than did under President Trump. You are the one responsible. You are the architect. I would like to make something clear to the committee. He's doing this for political reasons. Congresswoman, you were a pharmacist for decades. As a woman of science yourself, how disheartening is Fauci's inability to listen to scientific theories that don't fit his narrative?
Well, you're only going to be presented one side in this, and thank goodness that Rand Paul, he is a physician. You know, he had a disagreement with Roger Marshall yesterday. These are colleagues of mine in the Doctors Caucus. And for him to say he is the science and discard any other disagreement with him, that's wrong for this country. That's wrong for the world, basically. When they say follow the science, follow the true science. He always diverts, going back to personal attacks or whatever. He doesn't want to answer the real question, and that's a huge problem. And, you know, if there's anything we can do to push forward the studies that are true, tried and true, they won't even discuss natural immunity when it comes to this virus.
The real issue is that the government has seen one way to do this, and the first that was to do nothing, and then it was to get everybody vaccinated.
You know, you're seeking political power.
And there's 330 million Americans, and it looks like at least half of them have real serious problems with getting
We
vaccinated.
just want answers, and we want everybody pulling in the same direction, trying to
And so
find
there's other
those
ways to
answers.
do it. They shouldn't have built everything around vaccination. Vaccination cards, vaccination passports, booster shots, vaccination, blah, blah, blah. It should all be about immunity, about whether you're immune to this virus or not.
Press conference. Watch. On the question of hypocrisy you just asked, you people at the podium are speaking without masks. Just once, I'd like to see a reporter say to Joe Biden when he stands at the podium in the White House without a mask, Mr. President, why aren't you wearing a mask? Just once, I'd like to see you say to Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, when she stands at the podium with no mask, Ms. Psaki, why don't you have a mask? The questions are only directed at one side, and I gotta say, the American people see hypocrisy. You heard it. Cruz slamming his fist on the podium, calling the, quote, mask hypocrisy. Cruz said the press should be instead asking more questions about the mandate hypocrisy from the Biden administration.
It's not complicated. You just wear it when you have to and don't wear it when you don't have to.
Timeline of his positive COVID test as he fights to stay in
I don't think
Australia.
Democrats are getting
The
fined
Serbian
for
tennis
not
star
wearing
admitting
masks.
he did an interview and photo shoot after testing positive, saying, quote, "This was an error of judgment. I should have rescheduled this commitment." Djokovic also apologizing for errors on travel documents, saying his agent made a mistake when claiming Djokovic had not recently traveled before coming to Australia. It's still unclear if he will be able to play in the Australian Open, which starts on Monday. More to come on this front for short.
Well, now that that seems settled, 45 minutes after the hour now, did Pete Buttigieg say Christmas? Huh? You won't believe what one big city mayor had to say in the middle of the supply chain crisis.
Oh, yeah, I was going to do that either. Buttigieg took that corner of Long Beach.
Kim Jong-un on hand to watch. As you can see there, this is the third time the regime has claimed to find such a missile, and the second time in just the past week. The United States and its allies condemned the launch, but the US also did something unusual. Dinner's Grant Todd explains.
A provocative move by North Korea's 38-year-old dictator, causing enough of a security concern in the U.S. to halt air traffic. The FAA ordering a ground stop for some pilots along America's west coast. This after NORAD, the U.S. military's North American Aerospace Defense Command, detected that Kim Jong-un's regime had test-fired a missile missile Monday evening. Some pilots were
They do such a
instructed to
terrible,
land,
terrible
others
job of
prevented from taking off, like at Burbank
telling us
Airport
who's shooting
in California.
missiles.
There's ground stops, all
The
departures.
only people we ever hear about who are shooting missiles are
Until further notice right
North
now.
Korea
The
and
FAA says flights
Iran.
resumed in less than 15 minutes,
But every
and that it's
country
reviewing the ground stop order.
that has military
NORAD
fires
says
missiles
it didn't issue
all
any
the time.
warning and assessed the North Korean launch did
Russia
not
fires
pose a threat to the
missiles, China
continental
fires
U.S.
missiles.
Still, U.S.
US
officials
fires
call
missiles.
Kim's latest missile tests destabilizing, dangerous, and missile experts are concerned about what they
South
could mean
Korea
for
fires
security in the
missiles.
region.
Australia fires missiles.
Making some progress.
UK
The
fires
suspected
missiles.
ballistic missile, according to South Korea's top military officials, reached a
kinda like to hear about
velocity
other
of more
people
than
that fire
10
missiles.
times the speed of sound. North Korean state
Yeah, I kinda
media
like them
says
all to
Kim
stop.
Jong-un attended the launch and calls the projectile a hypersonic missile. South Korea's military says this projectile was more advanced than the weapon the North Koreans tested last
I
week,
hate
which the
it in
regime
particular
also
when
claimed was
North
a
Korea
hypersonic
shoots them
missile.
into the ocean.
If that's
Or
true,
anybody shoots
North
a missile
Korea
into the
may
ocean.
have now tested hypersonic
Pretty
missiles
stupid thing to do.
3 times in recent months.
These missiles, if they're equipped with nuclear weapons, they can reach Seoul in less than a
It's not
minute.
like they're biodegradable.
Experts say what also makes hypersonic missiles, and more specifically the so-called glide vehicles those missiles send off, so dangerous is that they could fly as fast as 20 times the speed of sound and are more maneuverable in flight than other missiles.
These hypersonic missiles would be less vulnerable to U.S. missile defenses based in the region, and it can make U.S. conventional forces and bases more vulnerable to the North Korean attack.
The young dictator has just passed the 10th anniversary of his ascent to power. Experts say there's little doubt what his rule has meant for North Korea's weapons capability.
Are they more dangerous? Yes, the threat has increased because their nuclear weapons and their missile program have expanded and they have modernized and they're continuing to do so, and there's not really any way for us to stop them.
While analysts worry about the North Korean weapons program getting even more dangerous, they're also worried about a lack of diplomatic engagement with North Korea right now. One analyst points out he believes the Biden administration is distracted by the security issues between Russia and Ukraine, by the pandemic, and other issues. It takes a lot of diplomatic energy to engage North Korea on weapons, this analyst says. The U.S. doesn't seem to have that right now. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
Still to come, keep your winter coat handy. The forecast is ahead.
After the coldest air of the season settled in around New York City, temperatures, sub-zero wind chills, we had all of it in the past 24 hours. So
Sure.
this tell you it's far from over. This morning,
11
Boston,
degrees
Bangor,
in
Albany,
Boston.
still seeing sub-zero wind chills.
Minus
Things
3
are
with
cold.
wind chill.
Wait till you see that forecast on that.
It's cold.
I'm Jonathan.
That is so cold. Oh my god. It's been extraordinarily cold. Winter. But not Canada cold. Not like Arctic Circle cold. Antarctica cold. Not that kind of cold. Alaska cold. It's just been cold in the US lately. Because of winter. NYC businesses speak out against soft on crime DA. Man, I'm so tired of hearing Fox News talk bad about this guy. This in New York, and the mayor and the district attorney and everything. He looks racist, he looks short-sighted, he looks ignorant. It's crazy. Republicans and this Fox News channel act like these Democrats are purposely making it easier to commit crimes and increase the crime rate. Like that they don't care, they don't know what they're doing, kind of thing. But then, just like many other issues, they don't want to know what they're doing, they don't care what they're doing. They think they can do it better. And they're going to badmouth everybody who's having any problems, instead of trying to be part of the solution. It's pretty pathetic. I think they think there's a chance they might win an election in New York.
Temperatures are hitting the northeast US, but there is some reason sight in as Pedram Jabahari has the details. Good morning, Pedram.
Congressional district.
Good morning, East Side. The cold air is still widely in place across areas of the Northeast, but it is certainly not as cold as it was just 24 hours ago. In fact, you take a look at the
30 yesterday in Washington, 47 today.
In Philadelphia, 44 degrees. Yesterday was 27. Certainly the 20s giving way to about 40 in New York City. A better perspective here as far as the 15 to 20 degree warming trend that we're expecting to see later on today. It's still, though, cold enough across interior portions of New England to produce at least a little bit of a wintry mix in a few spots with this incoming system, but certainly not a blockbuster event.
Wow.
Now, what is going to be potentially a blockbuster event is the incredible nature of the next round of Arctic air forecast to come in sometime Friday into Saturday, with possibly a southern insurgence. Any portions of the southern United States get in on some of this very cold air, maybe even some wintry weather. There goes this trend here. In Minneapolis, we climb back up above the average of 23 degrees, but we go right back down into the teens there by Friday afternoon. Chicago from the upper 30s to the upper 20s, and St. Louis from 55 down to 40. So the trend is shifting downward. They're lower, though, so it's certainly feeling it here by Friday into Saturday. But they'll struggle to get out of the single digits with this next round of Arctic air. Boston, you'll notice all the way down to 15. Port Maine, essentially a high of only 11 degrees. And look at this. We're talking about the overnight temperatures getting down close to the single digits here at Central Park. So a big-time cold air outbreak yet again as we head towards this weekend. Albeit less dry this go-around. But I'll show you what's happening across the southern U.S. Slightly warmer weather for now. Back towards the western United States. We do have active weather still in place. A couple of inches in place around Seattle in the past 24 hours. Daily record for rainfall for this past year. But another 5 to 10 possible around the western periphery there of Washington State. To the Vancouver Island as well. With some flood potential still in place. High temperatures range from about 72 room temperature in South Florida all the way to the 30s around Louisiana.
Thank you very much. Happy birthday. Oreo, one of America's most loved cookies, is celebrating, get this, its 110th birthday. To mark the occasion, the company is unveiling a brand new flavor, chocolate confetti cake, because there's no better way to spend the birthday than with cake or cookies. Sprinkles, 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 and sprinkles it seems inside and out. So just have to be fast and be available for limited time. Come join us. Happy birthday.
This is running out of batteries.
Today was a story we asked you on the top of the show. We asked you what you thought of the new rule we were doing in Canada. Those who refuse to get the vaccine are going to have to pay. The government there is handing out fines to the unvaccinated. Is it fair or not?
Oh.
You had your vote. 81.5% of you said it is. It's coming. That does it for me this hour. Thanks very much for watching. Our coverage continues in the start with Kristen Roman and Laura Jarrett. I shall see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
It looks like Issa Suarez did a poll on her Twitter page about something about the COVID in Quebec and charging people or something. I'll have to go check it out. Good luck. Thank you, sir.